Welcome to the history section. The subject of this particular podcast is a fascinating investigation into the purported Eastern origin of the Celtic peoples.
It is, and the methodology here moves away from some of the more established theories, things focused on, say, Pelasgians or Etrurians.
Right, this is something different. The entire approach is based on an examination of the genealogies found within the first book of Chronicles.
Exactly. It posits a clear pathway, essentially tracing the major eponyms, the namesakes, of various Celtic groups, all the way from their ancestral homes in Babylonia.
From the east, and then following that trail right across the continent.
All the way to Britain in the west.
Yeah.
It's a precise lineage analysis, which offers a really distinct alternative to more mythological frameworks.
And the use of genealogical data in this kind of ethnological research it has to be critical.
Oh, absolutely. But with a major caveat. It has to be verifiable.
Verifiable through other means.
Yes, through independent geographical and linguistic traces. We have to remember that cultures like the Cimmerians and Akkadians are now, the focus of intense scholarly attention.
Much like the Pelasgians and Etrurians once were.
Exactly. And this research really shifts the perspective. It suggests that the deep history of the Celts can actually shed light on the history of these much older peoples. It puts them all in the same broad historical movement.
And history does tell us that the Celts have always maintained this ancient claim of Scythian ancestry.
They have. And if we accept that claim, it really shouldn't be surprising to find them related to the old Scythic or Turanian stock of Babylonia.
So the entire hypothesis really stands or falls on one thing.
It does. The rigorous identification and tracking of the primary Celtic eponym and, of course, his immediate descendants.
So let's start there. The figure identified as the primary eponym, drawing from Chronicles, is Gilead.
Correct. But this needs immediate clarification.
Because there are two figures with that name in the biblical record.
Precisely. And we are discussing the progenitor who predates the more famous Gilead, the descendant of the patriarch Joseph.
Who is often cited in the same record.
Yes. The research asserts that this older, non-Israelite figure is the one who named the region on the Jordan River and did so long before the Israelites' birth.
And that distinction isn't just a minor point, is it? It's chronologically vital.
It's everything. If we were to use the Israelite Gilead, the timeline would be completely wrong. The Celtic migration would be dated far, far too late to account for their established presence across Europe.
So by identifying the older Gentile Gilead,
we anchor the movement much earlier. It links them directly to the formative post-flood civilizations of the Near East.
Now, the research does have to navigate some conflation of the two genealogies in the current text of Chronicles.
It does, but the geographical evidence ultimately confirms the primacy of the older figure. The trail of place names just doesn't work with the later timeline.
Okay, so let's look at the name itself. Gilead. Etymologically, it signifies the hard, rough, stony region.
It does.
What's the significance of that specific meaning being applied across such vast distances?
The significance is in the persistence of cultural memory, a memory tied directly to a natural environment.
So when a people move, they look for familiar landscapes and apply their old names.
In a sense, yes. When we apply that etymological description, stony region, to geography, it aligns with remarkable precision. We see Homer's reference to rocky Caledon in Greece.
Which later transfers to the famous description of Caledonia stern and wild in Scotland.
Exactly. The fact that the eponym's name, meaning stony region, is repeatedly affixed to the most rugged and mountainous territories along their entire migratory path, well, that suggests a direct transference.
It's not a coincidence.
That's one of the foundational pillars of the whole methodology. This geographical consistency is key.
So if Gilead is the eponym, where do we first locate his people in that eastern cradle of civilization?
The Gileadites were represented in the Euphrates region by the Chaldeans, or the Chaldai, as they're known in the records.
And this tribe is cited prominently.
Very prominently, as the leading tribe of the great Akkad family. Now, that's not the Akkad of the Sumerian king list, but the broader ethnic group associated with that region.
So this provides the primary geographical starting point.
It provides the locus for the earliest demonstrable Celtic identity. The connection is direct. Gilead equals Chaldai.
But there's a potential issue there. The Chaldeans are mostly associated with the flatlands of Babylon. So how does that mountainous etymology still hold true?
That's a great question, and this is where history clarifies the origin story. The Chaldeans weren't always denizens of the flat alluvial plains.
So they moved there.
History tells us these Chaldai were originally a mountain race. They specifically originated from the rugged borders of Armenia, north of Mesopotamia.
And in Armenia, the connection's even deeper, isn't it?
It's much deeper. Within Armenia, we find that Chalde, or Gilead himself, wasn't just a tribal name. He was revered as the supreme god of the region, specifically of Urartu.
So he's elevated from a simple ancestor to a foundational cultural deity.
Correct. Which solidifies his significance as the primary eponym for the entire movement.
Now, as this group migrated west, the name had to adapt to different linguistic environments. Greek, cuneiform, later local European dialects. How does the research account for that evolution from Gilead to Celt?
The transformation is supported by a very precise analysis of the Hebrew root. For instance, we see an immediate parallel in the ancient British word Chaldee.
Which is usually thought of as a religious term.
Usually, yes. But the research posits that it's not originally religious at all, but an ethnic designation, directly analogous to Chaldean. And from that same root, we later get the more recognized forms, Galatian and Celt.
The mechanism of that transformation, though, particularly the role of the Hebrew letter ein, sounds technically complex. Could you elaborate on why that specific letter is so crucial?
I can. This is really where the technical linguistic analysis supports the geographical claims. The name Gilead includes the Hebrew letter ayin as its third constituent.
And that's not a sound we have in English.
Not at all. It's a pharyngeal fricative, a sound deep in the throat that's very difficult for non-Semitic speakers to reproduce accurately. Consequently, when it's transliterated into, say, Greek or the languages and cuneiform inscriptions, that sound is highly unstable.
It changes.
It changes. It's frequently represented either as just a vowel or, more often in these contexts, as a hard consonant, like a G or a similar guttural sound.
And what does that instability produce? What's the result of that sound shift?
The transposition of the ain into a hard G transforms Gilead into Gilgad. That is the key intermediate form.
And we see this Gilgad form appearing along the migratory path.
Repeatedly. It provides robust geographical anchors. Think of Calicut in India, the river Kalikadnus in Cilicia, and of course the famous city of Chalcedon on the Bithynian coast.
But not all the forms retain that der-rt ending. We see shortened names, like Cilicia or Chalcis.
Exactly. The linguistic process was dynamic. The research emphasizes that in certain contexts, particularly when the name was stressed, the emphasis on that third letter, the ayin, or the G sound it generated, actually weakened or caused the total rejection of the final D or T sound.
And that leads directly to those shorter forms.
It leads to the shortened, sibilant forms of the name, resulting in terms like Cilicia, Chalcis, and the Gallici in Spain.
But the connection isn't lost.
No, because the connection to the original root is intentionally maintained through related geographical names right in the same vicinity. Places like Chalcidius and Chalcidius in Syria and Macedonia, which clearly lead back to Gilead. This interplay Gilgad, retaining the consonant, and Cilicia dropping it, provides a flexible yet robust set of identifiers.
Which is what you need for tracking the family across so many different linguistic territories.
Precisely.
Okay, so following Gilead, we move to his immediate descendants mentioned in the genealogies, his sons Peresh and Sheresh.
That's the next step.
Now, initially, scholars were skeptical about using these genealogies. The consensus was that the biblical records only documented the later Israelite Gilead.
That initial assumption was, well, it was significantly overturned by external evidence. The discovery of Babylonian monarch, lists by researchers like George Smith, for instance.
And they included names that matched.
They included names like Ulam. This provided independent validation. The existence of a distinct, powerful lineage in the Near East, corresponding precisely to the biblical family structure and independent of the Israelite narrative, it just validated the use of these genealogies for ethnological purposes.
It proved this was a real, influential line in the region.
And centuries before the typical timeline ascribed to the Israelite dispersion.
Let's analyze the elder son first, Peresh. The research notes that Peresh is not an Israelite name.
It is not, which immediately directs our attention towards Persia.
And what's the etymological evidence supporting that geographical leap?
The evidence is compellingly direct. The word Peresh means horseman in both Persian and Semitic languages.
It's the term that designates the Persians proper.
Yes. This linkage points immediately and undeniably to the heart of the Persian identity, where the horse and warrior culture were absolutely central. Geographically, we trace this line starting in Susiana, near Chaldea, which is seen as an early, significant abode of the Persians.
And does this geographical association persist in the naming of the region?
It does, absolutely. We find the region of Elimaeus, sometimes designated as Ulam in Scripture, right in that area. Furthermore, the region still known today as Fars, which is the root of the name Persia, denotes the horse and is explicitly named after Peresh.
And this area contained descendants of his son, Ulam.
That's right, the people known historically as the Elame. This immediate geographical, linguistic, and cultural connection firmly anchors the Peresh line as the foundation of the Persian identity within that larger Gileadite movement.
Okay, so turning to the second son, Sheresh, what parallel tracks does his lineage start to lay down?
Sheresh's lineage appears to follow a slightly more southern or perhaps arid path initially. He's represented in Babylonia by Sura, a name we find repeated across Mesopotamia in places like Cereza.
And the trail then broadens out from there.
Significantly. Into Arabia Felix. There we locate the Saraceni, situated in close proximity to the Chaldeans.
Who are the Gileadites?
Exactly. So we have the
Yeah.
Gileadites, the Chaldeans, and the Shereshites, the Saraceni, moving out from that Prussian core together.
This establishes a continuous combined presence of both Gilead and Sheresh as they begin this massive Western movement.
Precisely. And while the term Saracens of a later time often carries different connotations, the geographical trace strongly suggests that the name, rooted in Sheresh, represents a closely allied branch of the original family that moved into the Arabian Peninsula but maintained close ties with the main westward migratory flow.
Following the family line through Peresh, we then encounter the next generation, his sons, Ulam and Rakem, and Ulam's son, Bedan.
And this generation provides three more distinct eponyms. Their recurrent geographical naming provides the necessary density of evidence for the hypothesis to hold together.
So starting with the first grandson, Ulam, the son of Peresh, the geographical link here is said to be exceptionally specific.
It is. We return to Susiana, where Elimaeus is clearly derived from Ulam, and this is specifically tied to the Ulai River.
Which the research identifies as the only biblical proper name that etymologically and geographically agrees with Ulam.
That's the key. The specificity of a river name, corresponding directly to an eponym, is crucial for the methodology. It reinforces the link beyond just tribal names.
The research also tentatively connects the early Babylonian king Ulam Burius to this Ulam, son of Peresh. Now, if the evidence doesn't entirely rely on this specific identity, why mention the potential link at all?
That's an excellent methodological point. The geographical evidence for Ulam's line, the Elime, is already strong on its own.
So what does Ulam Burius add?
He provides necessary chronological scaffolding. His name appears on the Babylonian lists around 1600 BC, which establishes a firm, historically documented date for the existence and influence of this family in Babylonia.
And the name Burius itself.
The resemblance of Burius to Peresh suggests a lineage marker, Ulam, of the Peresh line. It transforms the genealogy from just abstract names into figures of concrete historical power, and it demonstrates the time frame when this family began to exert dominion.
Okay, next we look at Rakem, the other son of Peresh. His name has a deeply insightful cultural meaning.
It really does. Rakem means striped or woven of variously colored threads.
And this is where the hypothesis becomes truly profound.
It is. This etymological meaning aligns perfectly with the Celtic words break or breakan,
which signify the same concept and refer directly to the Celtic plaid, or tartan.
Think about that. We're tracing the specific name of an ancestor from Babylonia, and that name across 3 continents and thousands of years is still retained as the cultural designation for the defining item of clothing for the Scots, Irish, and Gallic Celts.
That's not a simple linguistic coincidence.
No. It's a definitive cultural marker that links the ancient Near East directly to the modern perception of the Celts.
So where do we find Rakem's people geographically, near that original core?
The people of Rakem are traced to the Orkney of Chaldea and, most famously, the Hyrcanians of Persia. These people were also known by names like Barkani or Parakani.
The research seems to justify the B prefix we see in the Celtic terms, like break.
Yes, it argues it's an early prefix common to many ancient languages, not a late corruption. Geographically, Rakem is represented by the Rogonus River, Rogiana, and the mountainous district of Hyrcania, which translates to Wolfland.
And the emphasis on Hyrcania being a mountainous district seems important.
It's fundamental. The research suggests that the memory of Hyrcania is reproduced in numerous mountain tracts globally. It's a signature pattern we will observe again and again in their western spread.
And within Hyrcania, there was a district called Cimmerians.
Yes, which suggests amicable relations between Rakem's people and his uncle Sheresh's descendants. indicating that these family lines were migrating as a single cohesive unit.
Finally, we reach Bedan, the great-grandson, son of Ulam. Now, this name, of uncertain Hebrew etymology, takes on immense significance in the Celtic interpretation.
It does, especially in Europe. Bedan, whose name likely relates to strength or might in a non-Hebrew sense, first appears geographically in Batina, in Persis, located near Persepolis.
But the most compelling evidence comes from river naming.
Yes. The research attributes to Bedan's posterity the initiation of a systematic practice of river naming.
Could you elaborate on that? It's an incredible assertion that a single lineage dictated the names of major rivers from Asia all the way to Europe.
The pattern is just astounding. We see the influence globally. The Ganges in India, which bore the name Pade, the Budus, which is the Po River in Italy, and the Beatis, the Guadalquivir in Spain.
The consistency suggests a profound cultural imposition.
It does. In India, we find the Pade tribe, Patana, which is modern Patna, on the Ganges in Bhutan, home of the ancient Badais. Even the Budini, who are often vaguely placed in Sarmatia, are firmly identified as Bedanites based on this naming pattern.
And in Europe.
The highest concentration of Bedanite identity is found in Central Europe. Pannonia, that vast region spanning modern Hungary and parts of Austria, is identified as preeminently the land of the Bedanites.
And its most ancient population is agreed to have been Celtic.
Universally. So this family line, the descendants of Ulam's son, provides a massive geographical anchor for the Celtic presence in Central Europe before they move farther west into Gaul and Britain. It cements their role as the river-naming founders of numerous Western settlements.
So we've established the 6 ancestors, Gilead, Peresh, Sheresh, Ulam, Rakem, and Bedan, in their cradle. Now the real task begins, tracking this family's footprint as they move out across the known world.
Using the recurrence of these 6 distinctive names as geographic proof.
The first major staging post being Mesopotamia and Syria.
And this region serves as a crucial intermediate zone. It demonstrates the family's cohesive identity before they disperse into Anatolia and Europe.
So the whole family unit is recognizable there.
The full unit. In Mesopotamia, Chaldeans is Gilead. Persia and Porsica represent Peresh. Sheresh is found in Sarasa. Ulam is visible in Alamus and Elama. And Bedan is identified in Batne, Betanza, and Aphrodana. The sheer concentration of all 6 names within a small radius strongly suggests a robust combined population movement.
Syria then marks the stream's passage north and west, acting as a gateway to the Mediterranean.
Yes, and this region furnishes clear landmarks in their progress. We find Chaldeans for Gilead, Elamaeus for Ulam, referencing that connection back to the Ulai River.
And the others.
Rakem is present in the region of the Urkenses, and Bedan in Betne. The latter, Bene, is particularly vital as it's connected to the large nation of the Patana, who are mentioned in cuneiform sources in northern Syria.
This shows Bedan developing into a major national entity.
At about equal distances from the original Persian center, both east in India and northwest in Syria. It confirms the global scope of their influence.
The migration then naturally leads into Anatolia, starting with Armenia, which links back to the original Chaldean identity.
Armenia is cited explicitly as the original rugged home of the Chaldees, the primitive Celts, and here we discover Chaliat representing Gilead. Parisa is a clear form of Peresh.
And Rakem and Bedan?
Arsane, upon which Patansana was situated, represents Rakem and Bedan, respectively. It's worth noting that Arsiana and Arsine are considered softened forms of Hyrcania, so it emphasizes the persistence of Rakem's identity as a mountain people, clinging to the highlands.
Moving into Anatolia proper, Cilicia is a critical location. How is the Gilead name preserved there?
Cilicia is a perfect demonstration of the linguistic evolution we discussed earlier. The name Cilicia itself is considered a shortened form of Gilead.
Where the D is dropped.
Exactly. But the river Calicadnus exhibits the full dimensions of the original word Gilgad. The scholar Bocart confirmed this, noting that Celenderis, a town on the coast, was correctly rendered as the land of Gilead.
And other names in the area.
Clyte is also a shortened form. Trachea likely represents Rakem, referring to the rough land, while Sheresh and Ulam might appear in the Saras River and Holmi. This intense repetition of names confirms Cilicia as a major point of concentration.
Cappadocia then seems to supplement Cilicia.
Yes, it provides additional anchor points. It adds Syrasis to the Saras River for Sheresh. Rakem once more denotes a mountain range in Argeus, maintaining that mountain people identity.
Impression Bedan.
The goddess Diana Pereja, worshipped at Castabala, suggests a connection to his father, Peresh, and Bedan is strongly present, unmistakable in Badenum, Pedandus, and Tanadoris. That last name is strikingly similar to Celandaris, showing how names from different generations, Gilead and Bedan, could be applied to the same location.
It illustrates the continuity of the family unit.
It does.
Finally, in Asia Minor, we have Galatia, perhaps the most famous Celtic outpost. This is distinct from the earlier stream, is that correct?
It's often viewed as a returning wave, a later, more forceful incursion into an area previously settled by their ancestors. The name Galatia clearly indicates Gileadites.
And within Galatia,
The Trachmae found here were likely Rakem's people, and the epitobridges are identified as the Bedanites, their name augmented by the common Celtic termination break, signifying fortress or hill. The Pitanae of Lycaonia are also firmly identified as descendants of Bedan, showing the deep penetration of that specific lineage.
the final area in Asia Minor is Bithynia. What does this region tell us?
Bithynia is characterized by the research as entirely Celtic or Gileadite in nature. And here, Bedan's name appears particularly prominent, often superseding Ulam and Peresh in name survival.
So we see Bedan's line becoming dominant.
It appears so. The Bebrycians, the ancient Bithynians, are identified as descendants of Teresh, a name that connects etymologically with the Greek Buprasium and the Gallic Bebract. Prusa is also posited to be far older than the historical King Prusias, representing a simpler form of Peresh.
And the other lines.
Eliam may be a reminiscence of Ulam, but Arganthonius Mons keeps up the Hyrcanian or Rakem connection. The prevalence of names like Clite and Chalcedon further unites the Bithynians with Gilead.
Crossing the straits into Europe, the trail continues, beginning with Thrace and Macedonia. The historical connection between Thrace and Bithynia is often noted.
And Thrace immediately shows that affinity. Its Celtae were likely the same people who founded Chalcedon in Bithynia, and they also founded key settlements like Byzantium and Selymbria.
Selymbria is noted as a complex marker for the Ulam line. How does Selim relate to Ulam?
The element Selim is understood as a sibilant form of Ulam, a phonetic softening as the name moves west. This specific form marks the Ilamea, the people of Ulam, as they prepare for their great western name, the Ulam Bridges or Allobroges, which we encounter later in Gaul.
And Galaica was the name of the coast there.
Right, re-establishing the Gileadite presence.
And Byzantium, the future Constantinople.
Byzantium is suggested to be a corruption of Bedan, a highly compressed form, linked by its geographical connection to Chalcedon and the Bithynias River. The Bistones, who dwelt in Thrace, were very likely Bedanites.
So the four primary lines are still moving collectively.
They are. In the west of Thrace, we find Ciris and Prasius commemorating Sheresh and Peresh.
Moving into Macedonia, what confirms the continued unity of the family?
Well, Macedonia contained the large district of Chalcides, obviously a form of Gilead, indicating a dominant presence. Pydna, located near the region of Elamia, appears to reproduce the Persic geographical nomenclature, linking the location to Ulam's line.
And Rakem.
The Aragon River nearby is plainly identified as the River of Rakem. The neighboring place, Aegis Dea, shares the same name as the Persian Segisan, which establishes the correctness of the inductive process by connecting multiple, disparate points along the migration route back to the original Persian core.
We should also address the surprising presence of Celtic elements in Greece itself, particularly in Aetolia and Elis.
Absolutely. In Thessaly, there were definite Gileadites. Calathama suits the original Gilead name. Parisia and Parasis should represent Peresh. And Trajan, referring to rough country, represents Rakem.
But the strongest evidence for this Elamite occupation in Greece is a river.
It is, the river Apidanus or Salambria. It corresponds to the Bathynias near Selymbria and the Pedae of India. And this river, Apidanus, is crucial because it explicitly links Ulam and Selymbria directly with his son Bedan in Apidanus.
The parent-child relationship embedded in the topography itself.
Precisely. And Potniasar in Magnesia further establishes the identity of Bedan and Apidanus.
In Aetolia, the connection to the initial etymology seems very powerful.
The unity of Gilead and rocky Caledon is once again suggested, confirmed by Chalcis, the modern Galata. It shows the name of the ancestor Gilead, being transferred based on the ruggedness of the land, Caledon.
And the other lines are there too.
Erysinthus Mons and Trachonis Palus are memorials of Rakem. The Apodoti, with the town Phytium, commemorate Bedan,
The family unit is even replicated in major urban centers like Boeotia and Attica.
which indicates a highly influential presence. Boeotia has Holmia, Elion, Elamus for Ulam, Potnia Padecia, Aphidna for Bedan, Orchomenos for Rakem, and Chalcis for Gilead. On the isthmus, we find Chalcis, Piraeus, Saron, and Olmiae.
Attica adds Persia, Piraeus, and Aphidna.
Yes, showing a heavy concentration of the Peresh and Bedan lines, suggesting these were the dominant segments of the group in southern Greece.
The Peloponnesus contains fewer traces, but they are still distinct.
Yes, a less dominant but still traceable presence. In Arcadia, we find Celadon for Gilead, the Perhazi for Peresh, Elimia for Ulam, and Orchomenus for Rakem. Argolis has another Celendaris, repeating the Cilician name. Elis has Chelsus and Buprasium. Even southern Messenia and Laconia show traces, like Calathion and Bitane. The consistency is maintained.
Okay, moving to the Adriatic coast, Illyria provides an interesting development for the Ulam line.
It does. Illyria, roughly the modern Balkans, provides very clear evidence. Gilead is set forth by Claudinum and the Calicuni. Perseides and Caesarethia exhibit Peresh and Sheresh.
But Ulam's name changes here.
Crucially, yes. Ulam appears here with a D prefix in Dalminium and perhaps Dalmatia. This D prefix is a common linguistic phenomenon in that region.
And Bedan is prominent.
Very prominent. Putemus, Epidamnus, and Pisania are three different forms of Bedan. Dyrrachium, the alternative name of Epidamnus, must have come from Rakem, and the modern name of Bassiana, Budonli, later justifies its strong association with Bedan.
We now enter Italy, where the name Galli itself suggests the Gileadite origin.
Well, it's generally accepted that a large Celtic element existed in Italy, and the Gallias are, in this hypothesis, directly identified as Gileadites. In Venetia, the name Vidinum, a form of the Dan, is the only immediate trace. But Gallia Cisalpina, northern Italy, is far more revealing.
Why is Gallia Cisalpina so crucial as a geographical anchor point?
Because it reproduces the full family structure and, significantly, it reestablishes the Bedan river-naming supremacy that we observed earlier in India.
So the pattern repeats?
Perfectly. Brixia clearly gets Peresh. Oleus and Alieni signify Ulam, and Rhegium and Bergamum are attributed to Rakem. But the Po River, the Padus, is the star witness. It was also known as Badincus, and the town of Padinum sat upon it, precisely answering to Patna in India.
And there were other rivers with similar names.
Two others. The Padusa and the Bedasus, along with the town of Fidentia, indicate the overwhelming supremacy of the descendants of Bedan in this region. This dense concentration, associated with the primary waterway, is a signature pattern of their settlement.
Liguria and Etruria also retain memory of the family.
They did. Liguria preserved Gilead's memory in Clastidium and Rakem's in Racina. Pedona connects the names of Bedan and his father Ulam. Etruria exhibits relations with Gilead and Peresh in Calatanus, Clusium, and Perugia. Nearby Vetona in Umbria adds Bedan, and Sarcina adds Sheresh.
Latium as well.
Latium, where the Volsci were found, showed its Celtic side in Cilicia, Sora, Almo, Terracina, and Pedum. Bedan's supremacy is still visible in Sabinum, though his name changes in Alphidina and Ebutiana, which appear with Calatia and Samnium, connecting back to Aphidana and Apidanus.
The migratory trail now stretches to its final major destinations in the west and north. Beginning with Baetica, or modern southern Spain, the geographical structure is noted as mirroring northern Italy and India.
The mirroring is quite explicit. It proves the continuity of the cultural naming practice. The Baetis River and the town Baton are the direct counterparts of the Patispatinum in Italy and the Patipatna in India.
Confirming Bedan's dominance in Iberia.
Exactly. Ulam accompanies Bedan in the two forms, Ulia and Selambina. Rakem is found in Regina and Ergolon, or via Aragon and Barcina. The presence of Brigantum and the Vetones, the people of Bedan, confirms the Celtic extension far to the west, demonstrating the family unit arrived and settled collectively.
In Gaul, modern France, we see some of the most famous Celtic tribes bearing these ancestral names.
We do indeed. The Celtae of Normandy preserve the Gileadite name intact, a clear, persistent identity. The Parisi settled not far from them, and their famous city, Paris,
is seen as a Western iteration of Persepolis or Perisaria.
Correct. The ancient name of the Persi and Prasi, the people of Peresh. It suggests a direct cultural link between the early Persian homeland and the most prominent Gallic settlement.
And we see that linguistic pattern of reduplication for Peresh repeated in Gaul.
Yes, the reduplicated forms we encountered in Bebrucia and Beprasium are maintained here in Bibrax and Bebract. That consistency across thousands of miles underscores the fidelity of the name transition.
And the Bedanites,
represented by the Batasi and Bathanati, the latter being the tribe of Brennus' Trausi, who were Peresh's people. This connection is affirmed by the fact that the termination nuus, which appears in Bodencus, the Padus, is characteristic of the Allobroges.
Which brings us back to Ulam's name, leading directly to the Allobroges.
The Allobroges, or Ulambroges Ulams, people of the hill or fortress, are a clear derivative. This is confirmed by the continuity of names like Salampura and Salambria, which exhibit that sibilant form of Ulam's name.
And Rekem's progeny were nearby.
The Voliae, or Arcomici, also called Hercuniates, were found near the Allobroses. Alamon, Pergusium, Bate, and Batiana were key towns in this region, setting forth Ulam, Rakem, and Bedan.
The final western stop is the British Isles. How thoroughly can the research trace these 6 names here?
Very thoroughly. The Gileadites passed into Britain and named the Caledonia Silva, that wild stony forest that began near Carlisle. Calatum also preserves the Gilead name.
Or we find the Parisii and the Brigantes.
You do. The Brigantes being Rakem's people, maintaining that woven or striped identity.
And the full line of Peresh?
The line of Peresh is present through Ulam, Alona, Elias, Alone, and Habitancum. Most notably, the Buduni, or Dobuni, who are Bedan, occupied the southwest, where the famous site of Bedan or Bath is located. Bedford is also cited as Bedanford, indicating a major settlement.
Are there further traces of Gilead beyond Caledonia?
Yes. Gilead is found in Galda, or Galloway, and Glota, the Clyde River. Galda was also historically called Brigantum, linking the Gilead line directly to Rakem's people in Scotland.
And Bedan?
Bedan's name is conspicuous in Epidia and Ebuda, which refers to the islands now known as the Hebrides. This area is linked to the Volsa Sinus, which connects to the Volcae or Rakem line on the continent, showing the interconnectedness of the family even at the farthest western limits of their migration.
Turning now to Germania and Scandinavia, the ethnological connection between Persians and Germans has been noted historically.
This research provides the geographical basis for that observation. The mountainous tract of Hyrcania is directly linked to the vast Hercynian forest in Central Europe, and the enclosed Varisti are considered the posterity of Teresh.
And the others are present as well.
The Bettini farther north are identified as Bedan. Olmos of Bohemia is a memorial of Ulam, and Bamberg or Bedanburg on the Main is a memorial of his son. The Frisi in Batavia are identified as the Parisi under Germanic influence, showing how the Peresh line adapted names in new linguistic environments.
Swabia seems to be a particularly clear example of the persistence of the Gileadite names.
Swabia, which historical authorities hold to be originally Celtic, prominently features the German branch of Gileadites. The very names Baden and Wittenberg, or Württemberg, present 2 different forms of Bedan.
And Baden itself connects back to Central Europe.
It does. It was known historically as Aquae Pannoniae, confirming the direct connection to the Bedanite homeland. Furthermore, the Lake of Constance, as Bodamicus Lacus or the Bodensee, puts Bedan's presence beyond doubt.
And the connection to Rakem is maintained there as well.
Precisely. The Brigantes, Rakem's people, also dwelt upon this lake, and its alternative name, Brigantinus Laioxakis, explicitly unites Rakem with Bedan in this key German geographical location. The name Ulam is retained in the modern Ulm.
Even Scandinavia shows an offshoot.
Yes, with Pharesi for Peresh, Ulea for Ulam, and Bothnia for Bedan among their geographical traces, demonstrating the sheer breadth of their dispersion.
Finally, before we move to the overall context, a brief consideration of North Africa.
The presence of Celtic traces in northern Africa suggests that a branch of Peresh's family, specifically in the line of Bedan, colonized the Mediterranean coast.
So we have Farusi in Libya,
attributed to Peresh, and Shalida to Gilead. Barca of Cyrenaica and Pithon may also have set forth Peresh and Bedan. The African trace, though less continuous than the European route, confirms the maritime capability and widespread colonization efforts of this specific family unit.
The methodology is based on tracing these 6 names. It is important to acknowledge the limitation here, that this only accounts for the tribes who imposed the name of Celt upon the whole race.
That limitation is crucial for methodological honesty. The research acknowledges there were numerous other Celtic families that traced no descent from Gilead.
However, the investigation does identify a significant, closely related family that accompanied the Gileadites.
Yes, the descendants of Zimran, the eldest son of Abraham by Keturah. The belief is that Zimran married Hameleketh, or the queen, who was a sister of Gilead.
Thereby having his descendants counted within the Gileadite sphere of influence.
Exactly.
So how does the research distinguish between the Gileadite and Zimranite lines ethnologically in the Near East?
The Chaldai, who are the Gileadites, were the leading tribe of the Akkad family, suggesting a position of authority and dominance in Babylonia. The descendants of Zimran, conversely, were identified as the Cimmerians.
So they were distinct but closely allied groups moving westward in parallel.
That's the idea. This Cimmerian line accompanies the Gileadites throughout their entire course, leaving parallel traces in geography that confirm their shared migratory path.
Can you provide some examples of these concurrent traces?
Certainly. The geographical traces of the Cimmerians are wide-ranging and consistently appear adjacent to the Gileadite names. We see Cimmeriana in Hyrcania, Comaria in India, the Cimmerians in Babylonia, Zamareni in Arabia, Chimera in Lycia, the Cimmerians of the Tauric Chersonese,
The Cymri in Britain, Cimbri in Germany.
and Cimmerians in Libya. These traces, which include the Cimmerian Cimbri, maintain constant geographical relations with the line of Gilead. For instance, the Cimmri, from Zimran, are found in Britain alongside the Colatae from Gilead and the Brigantes from Rakem.
Supporting the idea that these were two closely related but distinct populations moving together.
With the Gileadites ultimately providing the collective name for the entire race.
Chronologically, where does this place the movement within Near Eastern history?
Gilead and Zimran were contemporaries, flourishing during the time of Isaac, the son of Abraham. They are thus placed chronologically later than the eponyms of the Egyptian Horites and Hyksos, establishing a timeline consistent with the beginning of the major westward tribal movements out of the Near East.
And the specific dating derived from Ulam Burius.
If we accept the tentative identification of Ulam Burius with Ulam, son of Peresh, his appearance on the Babylonian lists around 1600 BC provides a specific terminus postquem,
A starting point.
a hard, datable anchor for the beginning of the dispersal. It suggests the Elamites might count their existence from that period, with the Persi preceding them by 50 years and the Celts by 100 years. It reinforces the antiquity of the lineage far earlier than usually assumed.
So the strength of this hypothesis relies entirely on the methodology used, the mathematical recurrence of geographical names.
That is the crucial point. The research relies strictly upon geographical evidence. The mere recurrence of these distinctive names, Gilead, Peresh, Sheresh, Ulam, Rakem, and Bedan, in a single locality provides the basis for induction.
It's not about one single piece of evidence.
No, we are not relying on one smoking gun. We are tracking 6 unique fingerprints appearing on the same dozen artifacts across 3 continents. This statistical concurrence across a continuous migratory path from Chaldea through Asia Minor, the Balkans, Italy, Gaul, and into Britain and Germany provides robust inductive evidence.
Evidence that supports the hypothesis of an Eastern origin for the peoples known eponymously as Celts.
And in doing so, it moves away from subjective mythological assertions toward objective geographical correlations.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed learning something new. That's all for now, but in case you didn't notice, there are a lot more episodes on this subject available on this channel. If you're enjoying this historical podcast, please like and subscribe and share with other history buffs.
While this is an AI recording, the research that has gone into this production is comprehensive and focuses on very specific moments in history designed to bring as much detail to the listener as possible. Thanks again for listening in.